Welcome to episode 153 of The Hard Truth About B2B E-commerce. I'm your co-host Isaiah Bollinger, and I'm back with Tim. We missed a week, but we are back.
I'm glad to be here, and scheduling is sometimes a little crazy. So thank you, Isaiah. Last week was a little rough for me. I just couldn't do it. So it's good to be here, and we're doing one of our rare just us versions of the podcast, which is going to be a lot of fun. We don't do enough of these, I think.
I agree. I think we need to do more. I mean, the more I listen to other podcasts, and a lot of them don't even have guests, right?
No.
Or the guests are more of like the special guests, whereas we're kind of the opposite. These are special, I guess.
I mean, we love our guests, and thank you to all of them. But I have to say, it's nice to just talk a little bit about our experiences, the trends that we see, what's up, what we think is important. Before we do that, though, I'm going to thank a couple of listeners. I do have a few more people to mention, including some folks I was just talking to, earlier today. So a guy named Phil Santagata, he is a merchant running an apparel brand along with Berto Ribello. These two guys listen to our podcast and enjoy it. I also want to thank Andy Stevenson, who I've worked with on many different projects over the years, and Joshua Tippergan. They are ongoing listeners to the podcast. Thank you. I even heard that Joshua, I believe, is listening to our podcast when he goes to the gym. So it's like a workout thing, right? So maybe I should sing or have something really upbeat from time to time to get it, a little bit more of a vibe going. But thank you to our listeners. Reach out anytime. And I'm going to pause for our sponsor mention.
Balance is a B2B e-commerce payment solution that works well for you and for your buyers. It offers a seamless one-click checkout for almost any payment method, including ACH, wire, checks, cards, even terms. It's used by leaders in B2B e-commerce, and it's as easy as buying a shirt from Amazon. Check them out at getbalance.com. Book a session and tell them what your needs are. They are the first dedicated payment platform for B2B e-commerce, 100% tailored to your needs. Thanks again to our sponsor, Balance.
I hope that was enough time, and we don't have to introduce another guest, Isaiah.
Yeah, that makes the intro a little bit easier. But I want to. This must be the most exciting workout. Pump up music.
It's really a funny idea because I tend to listen to music when I'm at the gym. I listen to podcasts sometimes when I'm on a long drive or something like that.
Long drive. For me, the long driving.
It's the long drive, not the gym. The gym, I'm like, give me the booming, EDM or whatever. So.
Going. Yeah. The problem with I'm doing so much of that with driving is then I don't listen to music driving. Yeah. So sometimes I'm way off on the music side of things because if I'm I've generally gone to like F45, but they have their kind of like music tracks, so I don't have any control over that.
maybe what we need to do in our podcast is to solve a murder every episode or do something like that to kind of change it up a little bit. But who knows, right?
Yeah, so we might have to pivot to get more viewers that way. It's probably at least a higher audience metric is the murder podcast and B2B commerce. So,
I'll mention one thing before I throw this back to you to kind of introduce what we want to talk about. But one of the things that listeners have told me that I really, really love is that they like our conversation. So, they don't want it to be, here's question number 3. They don't want it to be really structured.
Well, it's funny you say that because, we have a new guest that I just scheduled and, people always ask us that, what are the questions? They're almost like they want us to give them all. We purposely don't. So actually, just to be clear, we do not like send people a list of 20 questions.
Nope.
And we don't want to do that because otherwise, it becomes scripted, it becomes kind of almost promotional. How can I, create the narrative? And really, I think we still feel like this whole industry is so early. It needs to be educated. And the way to do that is just to have organic conversations to get to the real information,
I mean, that's the thing. Look, I mean, I we've interviewed people, for a long time now, and it really is a lot of fun to just get into the weeds. And the best way to get into the weeds is just saying, like, tell us your experience.
Yeah.
Let's talk. What do you think of this trend? It's nothing like, here are the 5 questions that you have to answer every episode. So I love that. So I love that. So what do you want to talk about today? What was the
two things
topic?
that have been on my mind, and that it's a topic that's been around for a while in our space, and I think a lot of the guys at the B2B Commerce Association talk about this customer adoption. But I'm more and more convinced that it's still, essentially the biggest problem and the most underestimated problem within our space, in which, I have a lot of customers that I'm talking to that are early in the journey, at Zaelab, and they're just like, oh yeah, we're gonna launch these features, but they're just not. They're underestimating the customer adoption journey. I've seen it. I have clients that have been doing this for 20 years, and there's still challenges with it. Let alone imagine launching for the first time a B2B commerce program and just assuming, hey, we launched some features. Oh, everyone's going to use it. It's just not that easy, right? And so, and I think because customer adoption is kind of underestimated, the industry is behind where it should be. And I think there's also kind of like an economics behind it, where companies kind of have a hard time putting ROI metrics behind it, right? Or they see it as cannibalizing, and then we've talked about this in the podcast, right? It can kind of get in the way of sales reps, right? Or like, I was actually one of our customers was at this conference that I was there, and it was interesting to get to like meet their sales reps and hear from them, and they're very much living in the ERP system.
Sure.
Very much. And what was also interesting about that was they had so much to complain about the ERP system, but actually they were quite happy with the website. So we built the website, we launched a new website, I think this year, maybe it was end of last year. But it was interesting to hear how they liked the website with where it had gone from, the iteration where it was at. It doesn't mean it's perfect, but they were just constantly complaining. And they were on a fairly modern ERP system. Like this isn't, I've seen much worse, right, from an ERP perspective. But what was interesting, the reason I'm bringing this up is like they, as a company, culturally, they're very early in the journey in a sense, because they still don't use the website quite at the level of like, adoption from like a sales reps using it in the way that it could be used. And it just got me thinking, like, it's still being used as kind of this little piece of the business relative. Like in theory, they could be using it instead of the ERP and placing all the orders in the e-com platform and then just passing it to the ERP, which a lot of the problems they were describing, the e-com platform is like, oh, search sucks. Well, guess what? E-com has a better search, capability than the ERP. I went to the ERP marketplace. I couldn't find a single search add-on. Like there was no, how like in e-com, there's a million search apps and things that you can easily add on. There wasn't even an option.
I think, and ERP is it's a love and hate thing, because I've been in ERP so deep for so many different
companies.
What
was the first ERP you used?
Oh my God, that's a good question. That's a really good question.
It was green screen, something.
It was green screen. It was a green screen, and so it's a good question. It was probably, I mentioned on the podcast before, I programmed mainframes at a fire alarm company back like 30 something years ago, and that was a really like very arduous process, and everyone's staring at your green screens and printing out the green bar paper and
probably like IBM, AS400.
Oh yeah, it was AS400 all the way, and so that is probably my first experiences of that. When I was at Pottery Barn in the early 90s, they were using NetSuite, I think, already.
Really? They're early
version of it.
Yeah, NetSuite came in, I think, in the 90s. It must have been late 90s at that.
It was in the 90s, but I think they were starting to work with them, and I would have to go back and actually see if I could figure that out, but I have this memory of NetSuite there.
And this is why people always, if you think about why isn't there better ERP? Why isn't it more modern? Why isn't it? Because it is a really hard problem.
Yep.
If you look at the story of NetSuite, it took them like 10 years to get to like $10 million in revenue, or like it was a crazy like early journey to get like even a small amount of, but then it kind of snowballs, right? Because you build that base and then Oracle and the whole thing, But yeah, if you look it up, you'll see that it took them a long time to get any real traction.
But and I think it's just for much younger people who have no experience of this, I think it's worth pointing out that the way that a lot of things worked then, you really were like shuffling stacks of papers that had to go in these special packets to these special offices, and you're collecting from retail, locations, and you're bringing them to warehouse locations, and you have office locations, because, the internet wasn't really a thing yet, and they certainly had no e-commerce site then, right? So you have all of these.
They didn't have a centralized database of everything.
No, it was very, very like human intensive, time intensive, work intensive, however you want it, number intensive is another word I was going to say, where you're doing all of this stuff, and we had these rulers that were going down the papers, looking at the numbers.
What happens to all these archives, right? Because all these companies, like, it's probably somewhat lost, right? There's no way they stored all this data forever, right? Like
Well, that's a great point. Probably all that stuff that I did, that I worked so hard on for years, is probably gone forever, because who would have ever...
You even need it from like an audit perspective, right? Like, I think they can't go that far back, right? Like, the IRS can't come back to you for the 90s, right? Like, I guess... What would be right? I'm just trying to think of like what the purpose of that would be.
Well, I'll tell you what the kind of stuff that has been lost. I've mentioned on this podcast as well that I worked at Bloomingdale's in the 80s. I actually worked there for 8 years, right? But it was in the 80s. It was a long time ago. I was very young, and I loved it. And I wanted to verify, like, when I started, and I was like having this conversation. They said, "Oh, we don't have any of those records. We don't have anything. We have nothing." They couldn't even verify that I ever worked there. Right? So I'm like,
so if you did like a background check, they'd be like, "Well, you never worked there in the 80s," but like you're
they
like,
said we have no record. I don't even know what the cutoff was, but they said, "Oh, we don't have any of that anymore."
There's no like ADP. There's no, ADP didn't exist. Whatever
there was nothing.
Yeah,
I don't exist.
There's no HR system. There's probably a paper record. Like on on paper, and it's just
probably like a little card hand typed or something,
Pretty much
I guess
record of the 80s and maybe early 90s just doesn't exist, right? Like
it's bizarre, but and that's a relatively big company. It's been around for like 150 years. I mean, it's really not like yesterday or whatever, and so. It's kind of funny to think that in my lifetime, in my career,
it's funny because like in their CRM, you should be like tagged as like former employee if they tried to market to you. You know what I mean? Like from like a data perspective.
Yeah, but they have no idea. And so, but I wanted to get to a point, and you're bringing up some really.
Yeah, sorry, I really distracted.
No. This is fun.
Let's get back to the original question.
No, this is what conversation is about. I think one of the reasons people like this. You bring up these tidbits and they're telling a story. So. The ERP stuff and bringing it up to today. So I think that a lot of people in B2B today are simply used to, what they are doing because it's so work intensive and it's so, it's what they have to do, right? And that doesn't mean that you can't break out of that and keep working towards something else, which is, B2B e-commerce for many different companies work toward it.
Let me ask you a more specific question then, because in your, and obviously like it's case by case. If you were running a manufacturer distributor, let's say you're the owner and the decision maker and you had enough money, maybe it's a multi-year process. Would you try and move in the direction of moving all the sales reps and the ordering into the e-commerce platform and away from the ERP? Like how would you try and kind of think about that?
I think
like, do you see what I'm saying? Like
no, I can give you a very specific answer without really mentioning the company because I have to be careful about that. But a very specific answer, and this is based on my experience, is that let's say a company does an acquisition, right? Those are the opportunities where you say the acquisition is going to be our test and we're going to get used to it and we're going to work this all out. So you move everything for the acquisition, right? Into
like a digital, sales reps log into digital
first in every way possible with all of the whatever you're going to do. And then you see how great it works and it's bringing you all this extra revenue and whatever. It's in best case. And then you're saying, okay, now we're ready to take every other piece of the business and do the same. it is less risky. It's easier to prove. You have all of the evidence.
Especially
Right
if
in
you're like
front
a
of you.
$1 billion plus company, and yeah.
Yes, and that's that I've seen done. The other option is that you're basically walling something off within your business. You should have innovation processes, in place. You have to test other things out in your
Yeah.
business all the time. So you should have maybe a walled off way of getting something tested out. If you don't have this opportunity to test it in an acquisition or do something else, just say, look, for these people or for this product line, for this whatever, we're going to go fully, 100%, into e-commerce away from ERP. This is how we're doing it for this. And then you keep saying, okay, here's what we learned.
Yeah.
We're going to move it over.
Well, the more I think about it, and the more I'm leaning more and more in the direction that if I, where I would push myself if I was a manufacturer, because I try and think of like, and especially when I advise a company, like I try to operate like I'm the owner, I'm the, the shareholder, right? And I think that's the best way to think about how to operate a company, right? Yeah. And so with that hat in mind, I think moving the sales processes, the order entry, everything into some combination. I think it might end up being some combination of CRM system like a Salesforce or a HubSpot or whatever, and commerce platform. And I think that those become somewhat intertwined in the future. And then the ERP, I think, just really becomes a system of record, or inventory or accounting, hard raw data, maybe manufacturing processes. I think it's so bad at like just hearing these stories from these sales reps. It's bad for even just putting in orders.
Yeah.
Like, and they're frustrated with it. And I think that you could think of this. It wouldn't be that hard to get here, right? Sales reps logs into. You can even do this with Shopify. You can create a draft order in Shopify, which is probably like the easiest platform of all the e-commerce platforms to use. So if you can do it in that, you can definitely do it in, BigCommerce, B2B Edition, Magento, Commerce, Adobe, whatever. All the major platforms essentially have this B2B feature, and you could just create the order there, create it as a draft, or place it on their behalf and just place it, or create it as a draft, send it to them, just get their verification. You could also send it to them as a quote. They verify it, then the whole like quote to cart functionality generally works now. Adobe's had that for a while, where then you can take the quote or Magento, I should say. I come from the Magento world. That's where I started, really. So, and then you just turn it into the order, and then I guess what I'm saying is I think that there's a lot of value in all the processes running from like this experience layer being on the commerce or the CRM. I could also see it starting on the CRM and then maybe passing it to commerce. The reason I think it's some combination of those two is that they're more front-facing systems, right? Yeah. They're easy to log into. You can change them more easily too, right? Like when I looked at this ERP system, I'm not going to name it. I looked at their marketplace. There was only 17 apps on the marketplace. 17. So like
I've probably worked on more than 17 in the last few years.
Yeah, like the point that I'm making is like if you have a HubSpot or Salesforce or Magento or Shopify and you want to add something new, you want to add search. So they were complaining about search in the ERP.
Yep.
I can give you, 10 good search companies. And probably now it's more like 5, right? It's consolidated, whatever.
Sure.
That you could just plug in, add on, get up and running with new search in what? A couple weeks?
Yeah.
But what would you do with the ERP? Like they'd probably have to custom integrate, build, AI, it would be a whole project that could be months or a year. Like it would be a nightmare.
I think part of what
this is a modern cloud ERP too.
Yeah.
This isn't AS400 or the legacy Microsoft. This is I would argue top 10 cloud ERP.
I mean, I think part of the way to approach this, and again, I've had these real life conversations, is that you have to conceptualize this a little differently in your business. And I really mean conceptualize. Like you have to, because you get so buried in your processes and like, here's the deadline and the way it works and the person responsible and all of that. You have to kind of step away from that and take a deep breath and say, well, wait a minute, what are we trying to achieve here? and what is going to improve the process or improve the speed to get to the goal or whatever, cost savings. I mean, figure out any of those things. And when you have that conversation, it's a lot easier to say, well, the ERP is holding us back for these reasons, or the ERP is so complicated that it's doing X or
It takes
whatever.
20 minutes to place an order in the ERP. I've heard stories like that where it can take
Exactly
20 minutes to place a basic order. So hear me out. I mean, one aggressive approach to customer adoption would be to slowly, and I say slowly because it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
Force every order to go through the commerce platform, even if that means the sales reps place the order. Because I think if you do that culturally, it'll force you to realize, oh, we need purchase order. So this company didn't have purchase order. Of course, you're not going to use it's like probably 90% of customers want purchase order. That's like table stakes for commerce, right?
Yeah.
Then, there's nuances within that. Or, shipping. You start, I think if you start to go down the path of every order has to go through commerce, even if it's a manual sales rep placed order, I think you will quickly uncover the problems that would also solve customer adoption and why your customers aren't using it, at least from a functionality perspective.
And people use different terms for this, but when you're doing tests, you can come up with almost anything. And so I was part of a test a while ago where people were saying like ERP versus this, right? And so what you do is you tag all of the orders as like no fill orders that go through e-commerce, so that you're seeing like how quickly they get to where they're supposed to, and you're reporting on it. You're saying, well, here are the columns. It's like if you do it through ERP, here's everything that happens and everything it hits and how long it takes. And if you're doing it here, here's where it hit for the same order, place at exactly the same moment, but by a different means, right? And so you just provide these types of reports. And again, people open up their eyes and say, okay, I see what you're saying. Now, how do we do it?
Well,
right?
also with commerce, if even let's just pretend that the sales rep placed all the orders in commerce.
Yeah.
Now you can send an automated email with upsells and recommendations.
Yep.
Now you can send order tracking emails. Think about how hard that would be to do in the ERP. I don't even know what you would do.
I don't even know where you'd begin.
All the things find out.
I have no idea. I mean,
right?
you probably can, so you can do anything,
right?
Yeah. But
you can probably also more easily make sure that they can go in and pay down their invoices,
yes,
right? Or link to their invoices, right? I think that one, it makes you start to think about B2B commerce as not a commerce platform and a experience portal. I think that's almost a better way to think about it. Is
I like that.
It should be a customer experience portal.
Mm-hmm.
Or a customer experience layer to your, and I keep using the example of manufacturing and distribution, and just because I think they're the two main use cases, and they're still so far behind. I mean, another funny anecdote: a customer that I will not mention their name, and maybe you could figure it out, but I think it's probably pretty hard to figure out.
I'm going to try to figure it out.
I don't think anyone will be able. They're fairly large.
Granger.
But not Fortune 500, no.
Caterpillar. Oh, okay.
Not Granger. Fairly large, but not that large. So we have a great relationship with them. We're doing a lot of great stuff. And actually, I think they have a long ways to go with customer adoption. And, they're transparent about their org chart so we can better understand their company.
Sure.
Guess how many people worked in marketing and IT? Just get
those two areas?
Two areas, marketing and IT. Not
20.
That's a reasonable guess. You're off by a lot.
Go for
Three. And this is like a pretty, not Granger, but pretty big company.
Oh boy, and that's marketing and IT.
That's marketing. So they didn't in their line items. There is no marketing. Marketing is reports to IT.
I would be happy to talk to that company if they're listening right now. I'd be happy to talk to you.
There's some advantages for us, which means they need a lot of help, right? So we get,
but that's an interesting choice. Let's put it that way. It's an interesting choice.
So, anyways, I just think it's a good anecdote for what is the problem in our industry, which is it's still just so neglected. I mean, that's the majority. I think if you looked at I think this would be a very interesting I don't know how you would do it, but it'd be hard. You'd have to be like Forrester or something that can like get the org chart of these private companies. Maybe the public companies might be easier because they're like big and mega and you can kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think generally the public companies have much more marketing and IT staff because they've gotten to that. But I think if you look at like the mid-market private manufacturers, distributors, it would be a lot like that, which is, 40% staff is sales, 40% staff is like warehouse, delivery, manufacturing, 10% like admin, and like 3% IT and marketing.
It's funny because and again, I know our listeners have heard.
Sorry, just to add that. No wonder you have no customer adoption because you have 2% of your costs going to IT and marketing that are responsible for all of customer adoption of this massive change in your business.
No, and I'm going to support everything you just said here by just kind of reminding people part of what I do. Part of what I do is I go into businesses because they get in trouble because they didn't kind of right size all of these teams for the way that business works today. I mean, that's the honest truth. I mean, I love what I do, but often it's because there's a crisis and they didn't really understand that they had to put money toward marketing or that
why did they have the crisis? It's because, they didn't change for 20 years.
They didn't change for 20 years. And every business, no matter what you're making or distributing or doing, has like the same categories in a sense. I mean, you have to deal with money, so it's like the CFO is dealing with that. Yeah. You have to deal with processes or whatever, so it's operations. So it's not like there's a huge mystery there. But again, I think people get stuck in their particular ways and can't adapt quickly enough to the way that the world works today and the tech and the tools that are available to us. We got a lot of great stuff available to help you out and to build your business.
I really don't think it's a tech and tools thing anymore. I mean, there is money that needs to go behind it, and you need to put some money behind it.
You're right.
I think also that's a big misconception is I bought the software. It's like, okay, well, you got to spend a lot of time and money making it useful, right?
Yep. You're right.
But I want to ask you just a very basic question, which is, okay, aside from this idea, which I think is not as crazy as it sounds, which is kind of forcing the organization to use e-commerce and maybe CRM or some kind of like integrated combination as the new de facto ordering portal for all orders, I think would massively increase customer adoption. Let's take that away for a second. Yeah. What are some of the things that you would do? Let's say you're just going into a business, and I see this all the time. They're at 2% adoption, 5%, like $100 million business, 5% is online. Like this is not uncommon in a distributor or manufacturer. What are some of the things that you think they should look at or consider? How would you approach it?
One of the very first things I would do is I would talk to customers. I'd bring them in to...
because it sounds so obvious, but so few people do this.
I do it, and I do it in a very controlled way at first. If the company is really saying, well, I don't know why we would do that. I'm not so sure. Everything's working the way it works, right?
You're helping me right now because I need to add this to this. I'm actually literally working on a customer adoption program, trying to standardize a process and a pricing and almost like packages because I see it as such a big problem. And I'm like, shit, I didn't have customer interviews in there.
but it's one of the...
Write that down right now. Sorry.
No, write it down. But it's one of the first...
It's so obvious. It's always, everyone always forgets it, right?
They do. Even the big... And this is true, big, medium, small...
I'm literally going to write this down right now. So.
You better write it down. You got to listen to this podcast and then follow everything we talk about. That's what you got to do. But just to put a little bit more of a point on it, again, whatever you think in your business matters less than what the customers actually do and what they want, right? So you could think anything, right? You could think anything, but go to them. Go to them and say, what do you prefer?
We fall into this trap. I think everyone falls into this trap, which is you want to be right? And you want to, you're like, oh, but like our customers want to meet in person or they don't want to buy online, right? Or whatever. I'm just using that as an example, right? And I think it's harder than it sounds to ask the right questions to get the real information from your customers. I think a lot of customers also don't feel comfortable telling you your website sucks, your experience sucks, or honestly, we don't have a great experience with you guys, right? Like they're not, that might be the case for some of your customers.
They don't want to ruin a relationship, right? A lot of these, a lot of the customers and clients, however they want to be, the relationship is, they don't want to ruin a good relationship. They don't want to hurt a salesperson. They don't want to get anything. So you sometimes need an intermediary like myself, like yourself, whatever, to come in and say, this is a safe space. I'm not making a joke. You say, this is a safe space. I'm collecting all this information to benefit the business, right? It is to benefit the business. So let it out. Tell me. Like, and then you structure it.
I literally am creating a slide, I'm calling it customer experience analysis, because
there you go.
I think it's that important, right? Yeah, you gotta, and I think that a lot of B2B companies. So what's interesting in this document, actually, I found a report by McKinsey that was actually kind of useful. McKinsey gets a lot of bad.
Because they're so expensive.
Well, yeah, they probably charged $1 million for this like one pager thing.
That's the thing. They're usually pretty good.
I found it online that someone probably paid $1 million to get this research, right? Mm-hmm. And it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. So and this was last year, and so you can imagine the trends are changing. Mm-hmm. It was the rules of 1/3. Mm-hmm. 1/3 of buyers want full self-service.
Sure.
Very much self-service.
Sure.
Don't talk to me. Like, I want to just go on and do it.
Yep.
1/3 want remote communication. Let's do a Zoom call. Walk me through the process.
Sure.
Blah, blah, blah. 1/3 want in-person buying experience.
Sure.
And this is but they said in this report, you can read it on McKinsey, it's a long report, that it was surprisingly consistent across all geographies and all industries in B2B experience. And probably also applies a little bit to B2C too, to an extent, right?
Yeah, it does.
But what's not surprising is self-serve online commerce is growing, in-person was declining. So you can imagine that trend's probably going to continue, and the remote is kind of an interesting in-between, right? Maybe it's like I start buying, but then I run into a problem and I get like a live chat video, sales assisted. But point being, if you think about that, I don't think most manufacturers are well positioned to serve their customers from a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 perspective.
Nope.
They're 90% in person. Well, let's go back to my funny example with the 3 people out of, whatever, hundreds of people. It's like, from that perspective, they should have 1/3 of their people focused on that segment, right? Or I'm kind of making that. It's not.
No, but so McKinsey is right. You're right. I mean, and my experience mirrors this. I mean, the world is the world, right? I think there's something about denial in a lot of businesses. And I think that word is really worth keeping in mind. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of denial. They want to deny that there's so much change, or that it's happened so quickly, or their customers are doing what all other customers do, or whatever.
Let me just add an anecdote to that. So a retailer that we work with, we were like, who would have thought? They've been around forever, 100 plus years, but very successful small retailer, but like, good small luxury retailer. And they're like, who would have thought all these department stores would pretty much be like dead? And I'm like, well, honestly, for me as a commerce person, that wasn't that surprising.
Yes.
But maybe from their perspective, the Bloomingdale's and these companies, now, it's not just necessarily them, but some of the other ones, JCPenney, whatever, Macy's in store, I think has been not doing well. That was surprising to them, but it's probably because there's a little bit of denial in some of these businesses what was happening. Right. And so
I really think it matters. And how do you break through the denial? You talk to your customers, and so it's these two sides of a coin. I mean, I want to make sure that I put this out there so we can talk about it if we feel like it, but it's like the internal stakeholders and the external stakeholders. And you always got to understand what everybody's motivations are. Well, you want to sell more of this X, whatever X is, great. Then, well, how do we do it better internally? And what do people want? Do they want X? Do they want something different to happen with it, right? Yeah. You got to talk. There's no way around that.
Yeah, and I think that the problem is sometimes uncovering the truth is uncomfortable, right? It's like it is. You might get people that are not happy with the experience working with you, or whatever it may be, right? It could be a lot of like critical negative feedback, but you got to go through it. And I think you're right. I think there's value. That's why there's no harm in hiring consultant or third party to do this and help you with it, right? Because they might not tell the CEO, the real truth because they don't want to be like, oh, your buying portal sucks,
I'll tell you
right?
one of the best questions, and everyone should take
if anyone for like 5 drinks, and then you'll get the real.
Oh yeah,
right?
but if everyone's listening, like if people are listening, working out at the gym or whatever they're doing, right? I would have them.
Apparently, we're the #1 gym podcast, right?
#1 gym podcast. Next time when you're running on the treadmill, don't fall off the treadmill, guys.
We'll work out so much harder. Tim and Isaiah are on the manufacturing distribution. It's so exciting.
We're getting everyone so pumped just by having this podcast. I mean, it's amazing. But here's a real like takeaway for me. I mean, one of the things that I always say is that when people are, there's this denial stuff, right? The denial stuff that I'm talking about. But when people are, in the room and you want to ask a question of them, like their customers, one of the best things you can ask is, how do I get you to spend more money with this business, right? And that's a real question, and it's a really good question because it benefits everybody. It's like, you shop in a lot of places for these things, these parts, these whatever. Or what prevents you from spending even more to grow your business? And then they'll say, well, it's that you don't have an app. It's that I have to wait for salesperson X to do Y, or it takes me so long to do this order, or I don't get, they give you the list. They give you the list.
Yeah, like you pretty much could build, and I think a lot of the best companies do this. Actually, I want to bring back, do you remember Nassim way back? He was on our podcast. I think he's maybe come on twice.
Yes.
The guy in South America, where they built like this custom, pretty sophisticated B2B buying experience portal. Yes. And if you remember, he says most of their roadmap is just the sales reps telling them what they need to sell more and what their customers want.
Yes.
Like it's not him coming up with ideas. It's just, but it's so effective but they did a really good job clearly getting the sales reps bought in and the sales reps wanting features that help them sell more to their customers that are telling them what they want. And I think sometimes that's missing,
and again, I always laugh about this, but it's real. So I in one of the engagements I had about 2 years ago, so not too far back, I was asking customers of this big company. It's a multi-billion-dollar international company. I was asking their clients some questions. And they were hilarious in a way because I said, well, how do you spend more? And they said, do this, right? And then I brought all that back, as you said. And I brought it to the team and I said, and they're like, oh, we don't have most of those things on our list, like of things that we wanted to do. And I was like, well, here they are, right?
The problem, right? Like you have the wrong roadmap, right?
You have the wrong roadmap. And they realized that there was, I think, if I remember correctly, there were about 4 things on the top 10 that they were working on aggressively, but really only 4. And so they had to figure out, like, well, wait a minute, where do these other things
missing, right? They're chasing the wrong things,
and
right?
some things are small, and some things are a lot bigger, and they just had to realize, well, this is what our customers are telling us. And we picked some of the top customers. One of them was spending I'm going to make up a number, but $50 million a year.
Wow.
Really a lot of
good experience for them.
Oh yeah. And so it's make sure they're happy. Yeah. Okay, we're going to talk to
million or 75 million.
It was a huge amount of money, for a client for this type of business. And we're like, they're not happy. So let's make them happy.
So let me double click on that a little bit more. Sure. Another thing that I think you could do within that process that I'm thinking about is ask them what buying experience they have that is good online, that is a competitor or adjacent. Maybe it's similar, maybe it's a different manufacturer, different vertical, but it's a good. I guarantee you they'll be like, oh, these other guys have this amazing portal. I log into it. Mm-hmm. It's figure out how to get that log. I think part of the problem is that a lot of these logins are not public.
Yeah.
You can't just go on and be like, I'm on Amazon, right? And so that makes it hard to kind of sometimes figure out. But, it's not that hard.
No,
it's not. Information. They'll probably give you their login as a test, right?
They will.
It's not a direct competitor, or maybe an adjacent manufacturer or something like that, No,
I'll tell you what I did in real life, too. I had clients in a room, and I had them on their laptop, and I had them sign into other clients, other companies that they had relationships with, to talk about what they liked on the portals or not. and it was required in these, my reports that I couldn't name those companies,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
They were because they didn't want to hurt
Yeah, they didn't want to be like,
relationships
oh,
or
we just
whatever.
gave you all this info.
But it was useful. It was very useful.
Any interesting features that popped up? Just any anecdotes within that? They were like, oh, this
Yeah,
was.
yeah. I'll tell you a couple quickies. I mean, one is I mentioned mobile. We've mentioned mobile on the
I know.
podcast many times. A lot of people
But
don't.
it's harder than you think because I
It
actually went to my customer's mobile experience and I was like,
It
oh,
is.
this kind of sucks. We had a good desktop experience, but that on mobile, it just wasn't as good.
No, mobile. Mobile is going to be an issue for a long time because it's more complicated for B2B. There's no
Especially with,
question.
yeah, they have these big pricing tables and how do you make that work in this tiny little screen? And that
But
was
even scanning, there's something about like being in a warehouse or being out in the world and you want to scan something or scan or take a photo of something and have it go up to your account so that it can relate to whatever that is that is your issue or that the product you want to purchase. That is such a big thing that happens in B2B, especially not as
yeah,
much in B2C because
yeah,
people do their homework separately in B2C. Research shows like if I want this pattern on this shirt, I'll take a picture of it and I'll do Google Lens or whatever and find out where it comes from. But that's not how it works for B2B necessarily. They're out in
yeah,
the field
yeah.
trying to do something and they depend on their business relationships more. So that's one. The other thing
So
is
they were able to scan something on their phone,
yeah,
or what? They had like a scanning feature, or what was the?
scanning features so that you could either scan a barcode for a part and say immediately have is available for reorder, right?
This
Like
was in
scan,
on mobile, so they had
yeah.
a buying
Yep,
portal.
I'm scanning a product with my
Yeah,
phone.
so I'm like, I need this
A
new,
part.
valve that broke, and
Yep.
it would, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and that's a real thing. Again, I've used a sprinkler company as an example before because I've worked with them, and they have to get plumbing, electrical, outdoor stuff, all different
Yeah,
kinds
it's
of categories,
complicated. Yeah,
and they're out in the field because they're not. That's where sprinklers are, right? They're out where they are, and they sometimes will have a picture of a part number on a piece of brass and a name of a company, and they want to scan that. They want to take a pic, and they want to
wow.
send it
And it was
somewhere.
able to kind of like read it and
Yeah.
figure it out. Wow.
Yep. Yep. And so there are companies that are now good enough or getting better with it that are doing those kinds of features, that really matter for B2B.
Yeah.
So either it's an actual scannable barcode with the same company or an identification tool for the image where you're trying to figure out a part. That's
And
that's a big thing.
we haven't even got to AI yet, but
No.
with AI, I mean, we're not far away from that. Like you said, just boom, tell me exactly this model number based off the image. It'll probably figure it out,
And so I'll give you two more quick ones, and then we could see if we want to talk about them more. One of the other quickies that I've seen is, live chat's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
But really, what is very, very important to a lot of B2B is to set up quick meetings and make it very quick that it's like a
Yeah.
5-minute meeting.
Within 10 minutes, right? Like I just need a
Exactly.
consultant quick. Yeah.
I
Almost
need my sales consultant and it's urgent and I need
yeah.
it now. And you want the person, the
Because you're dealing with it
person.
in the field, a field level issue.
Yeah,
So
that's a critical thing, and if
actually,
you can
it's
do it,
interesting. A platform I'm learning more about, and I think hopefully we'll build some cool things around that. Is a company called ServiceNow has acquired our partner Logic AI,
I've heard of them. Yeah,
and so
Great.
they're actually a very field service oriented company. But I could imagine as we build more around them, building experiences like that where they're in the field and then be able to get to a sales rep quickly, things like that.
but that feature has become something that a lot of people are trying to figure out how to adopt, how to do it, and again, it's either sales or service. It's both.
See, this
But
is
you
why
want
it's a little so expensive because in theory you should be able to have. I still go back to the mobile app, right? You should have a unified website / mobile app that work together. And
Yep.
probably have the same login, right? I should be able to log in on my mobile app
Yep.
and the website. And once I'm logged in, I have my personalized rep associated with my account. And then also be able to get them on the call quickly through that, experience. And maybe it would be kind of cool if it did like a backup if they're not available. It brings like the next closest rep. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And so those are critical. There's one more that's a weird one that a lot of B2B people may not think about as much. It's kind of like buy online, pick up in warehouse, or buy online and pick up at
yeah,
distributor.
they call it a lot of times will call.
Yep.
Yep. But I
Yep.
agree. It's critical. I mean, because there's
It's
a lot of companies
big.
that they have their own trucks. They don't want to pay for shipping, right?
Yep.
Because they know they know shipping might be $3,000 for
Yep.
a load of steel. It's like, well, I already got my trucks because I'm this big company, whatever. I want to go send them and go get it, right?
Well, the issue that I've seen happen most often, again, just for listeners to hear this, is that they get stuck somewhere in the shipping process, and there's no option to do it, and then they have to call a person, and they want it now, right? So
Well, that's the
they're
advantage of
willing.
pickup is they might literally be like, I'm ready to go pick it up in 20 minutes or an hour.
Exactly, and they can't, and that has been a huge issue because if they can get something now, they want it. They
Honestly,
will go
that's
there.
not that hard of a feature to do. I mean, I will say though that a lot of these big companies have a lot of warehouses, so making sure that
They do.
the warehouse specific inventory, accurate can be part of the problem. As long as if you have that part solved, the warehouse specific inventory, it should be pretty easy to have that in the e-commerce site and then allow for pickup. That part,
You would think. You would think, right? And
all of the stuff you would think. Once again, technology, but once again, a lot of times you get. I mean, I've worked with a retailer where they still can't do buy online, pick up in store, but it's not our fault. We've been trying for years. It's a process store problem. It's a store. It always comes back to like processes and back office processes.
It does.
That are old and broken, but like the technology exists. That's not the problem.
Oh, I mean, there's a whole long list, but those are big ones that I see.
I love that.
You can solve them. You can solve all these things, right?
100%. Yeah, but I think part of it is just a willingness and an eagerness to solve them. And I think a lot of times I also think that what I see is just not enough urgency. Like, I can't tell you how many of these companies I talk to, they're on a tiny retainer with us. They're trying to do B2C and B2B and all these. It's like, we're never going to get anything done in all these areas because you're trying to do 10 different things for this tiny little amount of money. There's just not enough urgency to push these things forward from a seriousness level of investment from my perspective. That's what I see a lot.
Yeah, you're right. There's not,
but I see that the case a lot. I see that the case probably more than 50% of the time. Just like a lack of urgency and willingness to invest to go faster.
I mean, there's a lot for businesses to think about all the time. There's a lot. I mean, there's no question about it. And I don't want to beat people up over it, but I think that neglecting or denying that there's all of this stuff that has to get done or could get done is also a problem, right? So it's kind of like, yeah, I get it. I get that you're busy. You don't have to tell me that you're busy. I know you're busy, right?
Yeah.
That I understand. But these are opportunities. Your customers, if your customers are underlining most of these things, then, it's not me. It's not like Tim is saying you have to do it. It's that your customers are saying you have to do it, right? That's the important part.
The other thing that I think is, it's happening right now is the AI revolution, right? And so I think we're already seeing this disruption, bit by bit with B2B commerce and experiences. And AI is just going to be another disrupting layer to all of this. And what do you, we've talked a lot about like content and product data. Any other, what's your latest AI, where are you at now today if you were to approach AI right now?
Almost every week I'm thinking of new applications or seeing businesses that are doing new things. I mean, I have to say product is, of course, a big deal. Content is a big deal, and it's low-hanging fruit. Service and sales have got to use AI more often to basically
I think it's a harder application. So
it's harder. I'm not going to minimize that. It is harder to do, but the benefits are huge, and part of it is just understanding. It's kind of like there's a term that people use, but basically it's like a webbing or a networking where you're saying at all times, like the AI is searching out there and saying, well, wait, Tim orders every 4 weeks and he orders these things. And we haven't heard from him, and it's week 5, right? And so I should reach out to Tim, right?
So AI is almost being like an AI sales assistant, right?
It is an AI sales assistant.
Yeah, I'm simplifying it, but let's say you have 1,000 customers or whatever, 100 customers. There's no way you can keep on top of all the things going on, right? And AI would help you, synthesize that data in a smart way.
But here's the other thing that's important. People do, when something's urgent, we talk about urgency, right? When something's urgent, they want escalation to happen, and AI can really aid in that. AI can figure out, like, who do we have to notify and where are they and how available are they for this big sales issue or for this big service issue? The product is missing and it's critical and da da da. How do we escalate so that we get to a human who can actually get that stuff done immediately? Because the AI alone is not really the answer yet. The AI getting things to happen faster or directing them to humans when it's necessary is really critical. So a lot of customers ask for that now. It's like you type in things and you get these little FAQs and then you get these little stupid things about service. But the issue is you can't escalate fast enough. There was a company I was working with where they had AI in place for service, but then when you typed in like your most complicated question, it says, go to our website, call our 800 number, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it was a dead end instead of saying we understand the urgency.
I mean, I think at the very least, this is my opinion, that AI should be able to route you almost immediately. I mean, just think about routing. Let's use that example. Have you ever tried calling Verizon? Or it's a nightmare.
It's no fun.
It's an absolute nightmare, some of these big companies, right? Like, I can't tell you how many times I've called some of these big companies and they're like, oh, you got to talk to the business, whatever, XYZ department. It's like, it could take you like an hour to get to the right person and the right, like, how is that still a problem? To me, AI should be like, oh, here's like Cindy in, you have a problem with fraud, but it's fraud business, not fraud consumer. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Those, you're talking to the wrong fraud department and they can't help you. And then I just see this happen all the time. And like, to me, that's just like such an easy use case. Route you to the immediate, because how much time is wasted talking to the wrong person 20 times until you get to the right person?
Tons and tons of time. And, I'll give one more AI use case that, just for people to think about a little bit. And it's really product related because, we still have this way of kind of surveying customers and getting reviews and whatever. But the information in those surveys and reviews isn't in real time, right? It's not really in real time, but AI can do that. So you can pull out like all of this information or prompt it, right? Get it from your clients, your consumers, whoever they are, to get it like all the time. It's like, I want to know this week or today everything that they're talking about across all orders to understand, do they like this product? Do they want something different with this product? Were they happy with it? It should be closer to real time. Right now, it's like scraping reviews or getting reports in a dashboard. It's really inefficient. AI holds a lot of promise to kind of collect all that information and present it, in ways that you can really, use right away.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah. I think, and I think there's big companies like my friend got a job at Databricks.
Sure.
I think some of the stuff will get more advanced where you're using your own data.
Yep.
But, a lot of companies, especially smaller companies aren't quite there yet because it's hard to do, right? Using AI for your own data versus like, right now it's more like you're going into their magic database thing. You know what I mean? Like,
but the bigger you are or the more products you are, if you have 1 million SKUs, wouldn't you want to know on an almost daily basis or almost real-time basis what's happening with the million SKUs?
Yeah, what's the number one product for the day?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
that would be cool, right? Top seller, I mean, you kind of already have that to some degree, right? Some of these sites, but
you do, but it's not good enough. And AI can make it good.
Probably not very real time, right? The top sellers are like lagging,
They're lagging. And
behind data.
Act, right? See, that's the thing that's the promise of AI here, too, is that you want to be able to act while things are happening.
Yeah.
Like, why are we selling that more right this minute, and what can we do about it, right? What is it?
I think at the end of the day, it all comes back to speed, right? Like, I think that the market for everything is just moving like, I want real time this, I want real time that. And the further you are away from real time, the less competitive you're going to be. Yeah. And I always come back, I think one of the best experiences out there, regardless of whether, how you feel about the company, I think Uber has arguably one of the best experiences about real-time services.
Sure.
You can see where your car's coming. You can see how long it's going to come. It's relative, at least from my experience, both the Uber Eats and the Uber Deliver, all the variations, it's relatively accurate. Probably less so in like a small, I'm in a fairly major city, so and I'm using it usually in major cities. But I generally feel fairly confident knowing that the guy's coming. I can see where he's at.
Mm-hmm.
That I always come back to that, and I feel like B2B is still so far away from that.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is like, if you're, let's say you're 10 competitors, if you're the furthest away from that, you are probably, regardless of everything else that you're good at, I think that becomes the most, maybe arguably the most important competitive advantage, right? And so whoever's the closest to Uber in that sense is probably going to win, right? And I think Amazon is that for commerce, right? But more B2C, not really B2B.
Well, and you're absolutely right. And I think layering in, things can happen pretty easily. You don't have to do it all at once, right? You don't have to say it has to be everything like Uber instantly, right? You could say, we need to show better tracking for where your order is as it moves along its route, or, all that kind of stuff. And that is somewhat good in B2C. It's almost non-existent in B2B, from the companies that I work with. They don't really do that. I want to know these things. Or like even an Instacart experience. Like I was talking with other people about Instacart recently. My Instacart for where I am in New York now has over 125 stores available for delivery, like within an hour. Like 125. It started with just supermarkets, and then it was like
yeah.
and now it's everything.
It's a marketplace, basically.
It's a marketplace. And so where is the B2B for that, where I want to get on there and get like Insta B2B?
So actually, it's funny. I talked to this guy. He sought me out, and you can tell he's a true entrepreneur, younger guy, and he's setting up meetings in advance. And what he's building is kind of that for the supply chain.
Yep.
So imagine a marketplace of how do I supply chain my business more efficiently through a digital version of that. Because right now, the way people do it, the more I learn, it's like you gotta like find people in India, you find people in Vietnam, and you Google, and you can imagine Googling. It's not a great experience for some of these.
It's not as easy as it should be, and there are sometimes better experiences. I've been working on a marketplace for another company that's all about health and wellness related products, and B2B connections there are stuff like that is pretty great, but it's still not there. Like people want to take a leap and have, a lot of consumers and clients and customers, they want to take that leap and have it as easy as something like Uber, Instacart, but it's not happening for B2B quite yet. That's a big opportunity.
Well, I know we both have to.
Yeah, I know. I gotta go pretty soon.
Let's finish out on this AI topic.
Sure.
I like the idea of service and sales, being able to use it more. Anything else that you're seeing within the AI world, or just I don't know, what other cool products that you're seeing that are like kind of new? Or obviously, I think everyone knows ChatGPT and these things at this point.
Oh, everybody knows that stuff. I'm using Perplexity more often. I use Claude. I use a lot of different things.
Perplexity is the one that it integrates all of them, or what's the?
Perplexity integrates multiple. Yes, but there are even more than that. There are. I keep trying out. I should have actually made a list. Maybe for the next podcast, I can bring a list of a lot of things that I'm working on. But one thing I was going to suggest, the last kind of AI comment that I see, is that people are using AI more for product development, which I think is great.
100%. I'm in
wonderful
the stages of developing my own product, or really it's a social, I guess I would call it a hybrid kind of social media / meetup.com platform.
Yep.
And I got pretty far. I was using Replit. I've been hearing things about this like Lovable. I don't know if you heard of Lovable.
I have heard of it. I haven't used it.
That's the problem, is like, which one's the best?
There's so many.
Then you start using it and you're like, I don't want to like move it all to something else. But I got pretty far with Replit in like a day. I was using it. I got so excited. I burned through all the credits. I'm on like the, base program. I'm not going to, this is just kind of a pet project. I'm not going to spend, thousands of dollars on AI credits. So I think I'm paying like $40 a month or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think I just renewed, so I was like, I'll take a break and I'll start going again on it when it resets my credits. And I got pretty far. Where I started to kind of break down as I was doing all these like integrations, and I was integrating with the email system, and it's like it's working, but then it like never really worked. Like the AI is like, we tested it, it's working, and then it didn't really work.
Well, I'll tell you in 30 seconds real quick. I mean, there was one company I was talking to where they're using AI to kind of, the usual text prompt sort of stuff to kind of work through some ideas about consumer data and whatever. And then they took all of those prompts and they threw it into a visualization tool, right? One of the better visualization tools, and say, can you help us figure out how these products are actually going to look, or what the options might be if it's in these materials with these specifications with this, and this. Very detailed, right? And then all of a sudden you get like, here are 3 options that you might want to investigate. And then you say, I want to have this for 3D printed files. Can you turn it into that? And then another prompt, and all of a sudden you do. So you're shortening the time it takes to do all that stuff.
I mean,
right?
at the very least, I still think I'll probably end up working with 2 developers, because you get to a certain point where I think it becomes hard to do everything purely through AI. But
you can't do it all.
The level of conceptualization and a functioning prototype that I was able to get to now becomes much easier to work with them. It's all, because there's something there that they can see and that we can work off of. And this is the crazy part, it even came up with a name, and I might actually keep the name.
Some of the names have been great that I've seen.
I may change it, but I may keep it. I'm seriously considering keeping the name.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part. I gave it the idea, and it created the name and the logo. I mean, definitely I'm not going to keep the logo, but
no, the logo's the big kind of.
Replit. It wasn't. It's not a.
That's really funny though that you got a good name. That's cool.
Yeah. Well,
we should do an all AI episode sometime.
Seriously.
We can prepare for that. We can do it.
Hopefully, I'll be a little further along with these pet projects. I'll have better.
I keep testing. I'm totally open minded on this, and I tell other people to just be open minded. I try things out all the time, and there's a lot. There's a lot. I really want to know.
Concepting or MVP or just prototyping in general, to your point, is going to become the next. It's already there.
People are doing it for apparel, health, wellness, food, CPG, beverages, saying, here's the data I have, or help me figure out the data, and how do I figure out how to match that to these product specs or for these markets or whatever, and then kind of getting stuff together. I mean, somebody did this for a beverage brand. I was just talking to them. Wow. It's happening a lot now, and it's saving time. It's not the whole answer, right?
Yeah,
it's not the whole
answer for sure.
But it's saving time.
Well, thank you, Tim. We will
wonderful
be back again, and we got a lot to post. I'm backlogged, so I'll catch up on posting soon. And
this is fantastic. I love doing it. So let's do another once in a while.
We will, especially when we have those gaps where it's not always easy to have a guest. So,
well, happy Friday. I know you're not going to see this on Friday, everybody, but happy Friday, Isaiah, and have a good weekend.
You too.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.